Welcome to the DevReady podcast, where we're helping non-pet techs build great tech. Today, joined by David Werdiger. He is an author, speaker, entrepreneur, advisor to small, medium-sized businesses. He's predominantly sitting at the wealth transition, but he's been in business for a number of years. From his dad's textile business, I recall, went off on his own, started his own business in the SaaS world, and it's all evolved over many years in time. Now he's also advising businesses. David and I caught up over a coffee, met via a connection, and had a really good conversation. I thought it'd be great to share his experience on our podcast. David, thank you for joining us.
Andrew, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward, enjoyed our coffee and looking forward to sort of taking this to the world of podcasts.
Sounds really good. Let's just dig in. Tell us a little bit about who David is, a little bit of your journey to date in the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I grew up in a business family. So my dad was originally in textile manufacturing. That's what I grew up around. It was a family business. It had other family members working there. And I used to go there when I was a kid and help out. And then when I was a student, I sort of worked there casually while I was at university. And it was, it was all encompassing. Everything was about work. And I sort of thinking, what's my future? What's my future career as I'm studying university? And I'm understanding parts of the business. And it was textile manufacturing, as I said, which didn't interest me at all. And it was property management, which interested me, slightly more.
A little bit more.
But still not, because I was very good at maths and stats and computers and stuff back then. And I sort of said, well, what does a career look like for me here? And I didn't see it. And I didn't see it partly because of the scope. I thought I want to pursue a career in IT, and partly because of the family side of things, because I'm the youngest of my family by a large gap. And the three family members who were working in the business, they were all 10 plus years older than me. And I thought, how am I going to fit in? I'm sort of this
Like
little
a little bit
kid.
difficult, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I just it didn't sit with me. So I finished my degree and I thought, what do I want to do? I want to get a job, And why did I want to get a job? First of all, for those reasons. Second of all, because I wanted to prove that I could get a job myself.
Just so you could break into the market in your own accord.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
I needed to validate that I could get a job, not just be gifted a job in a family business, which was available to me if I wanted it.
Okay.
So I got a job in IT for a stockbroking firm, and then I was a quant analyst. But even that experience was very different because my previous work experience is a family business. You do whatever you need to do. On a job, 9 to 5, the whole concept was foreign to me. It just didn't resonate.
And he's working on one specific area, in the family business. What was it like growing around a family business? How was it work? Like the whole ecosystem around. You mentioned everything was about work. It was a statement you just said. What was that like going around the family business? I was the same. My parents ran their own business, and I sort of learnt from that. I worked in it as well. It was more a milk bar grocery type business. But what did you find the family dynamic being around a business and all encompassing part of that as well?
I think, my father went through a lot during the war before he came to Australia, and he had a very strong work ethic, a very strong drive to rebuild what he had lost in terms of family. And he worked very hard. So work was everything for him. He was, old school father. And in my family, very typical, parental roles of father as provider and mother as homemaker. And we had cousins who lived next door to us, and their two fathers, who were my father's partners, they were actually the ones who brought him into the business in the first place. And the two of them dropped dead at a young age. And my father ended up being like provider and de facto father for three families.
Oh wow! So he took it a lot.
He
A
took
lot
it.
of
Yeah, he took it.
responsibility.
He owed them a debt of gratitude.
Yeah.
They were the ones who sponsored him to come to Australia. They gave him his start. So business was everything for my father, and he travelled a lot, and he was, on the weekends he would look around at opportunities and things like that. So that's when I say it wasn't discussions about business at the dinner table or anything like that, but rather my father was very involved in it. He also involved in a lot in community things, but he
Okay.
was a busy man,
Yeah.
and that was the notion of somebody, as I said, working on a job was not something I saw where you just work as long as you check in, check out. It was
Yes.
not.
No, unknown or no, yeah, not really normal for you for the check in, check out sort
Yeah,
of on the
exactly.
clock sort of
Yeah.
model. Yeah. So how long are you in the stockbroking world
So
for?
I was in the
What did it take you?
stockbroking world
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
research. That was a few years. And I
Okay.
decided, you know what, my future is not on a job. My future is not rising through some corporation. I wanted to be in business. So I left that and started my own business. But when I say my own business, it was I owned a job. I didn't own a business because I left there and I was a self-employed software developer,
Yes.
hunting from job to job. And eventually, started employing some people because the only way to grow a business like that is to, what was I selling? I was selling my time. So, so that's just a self-employed contractor. To turn that into a business, you've got to sell other people's time and take a margin on it. And it's not a business that I liked. I thought, ugh, I wasn't
Managing
very good.
people. It's a resource intensive business. That's what it
It's
is.
it's resource
Yeah.
intensive. It's low margins. I love developing stuff. That's what was
Yeah.
my passion. I wanted to do that. But you can't, to turn that into a business, you've got to be out there hunting for work and then managing people. Ugh, I want to cut code.
And they're two very different roles, right? So if you're hunting for work, looking for that side of things is very different to running projects and actually delivering on them. So it becomes a bit of a how many hats are you wearing, and it becomes a bit of
Correct.
juggle. It can
Yeah.
be, yeah,
Hunting for work, that's sales. Managing people, that's managing people. I
yes,
wasn't comfortable in either of those things.
okay,
So I went from job to job and had a small team working for me, and then stumbled across an opportunity to develop a telecommunications billing system. And this was in the mid 90s, just as telecommunication was deregulating, and you had all of these startup telcos popping up, and they all needed billing because they were buying wholesale from the carriers and they were selling retail. And billing was really complicated back then. And so I developed a billing system for one of them just as a custom development job. And through him, I meet his Optus wholesale account executive who says to me, there's a few other people who need some help with billing. And I have this light bulb moment. I said, aha, this is where I can move from selling my time, going project to project, to owning something that could be mine, IP wise, and sell that multiple times. So managed to develop it all over again as my own IP, and sold it a couple of times. And then I had one prospect come to me and says, look, I love your billing system. I'd like it, but I don't want to pay for it. And I'm thinking, last time I checked, I wasn't a charity.
how's that going to work? Yes,
I said, what do you have in mind? He says, I want to lease it. Okay, now we're talking in the,
yeah.
late 90s now.
So this is the first
So,
SaaS
so we, we
conversation.
strike a deal.
Yeah,
Okay, and the deal is he will lease the software and he'll pay me a percentage of his turnover. And I thought, you know what? I've already developed the software. Yes, I've got to continue to develop it, but it's a sunk cost.
yes,
Right now, he's starting up, so revenue is not very high. But if he grows, I'll get a share of his revenue as he grows. Now, this revenue model was not very common back days. These days, it's called,
yeah.
SaaS and other terms, rev share. But that was the really one of the turning points in the business because all these telcos are starting up from scratch and they don't want to spend big money on a billing system. They
So
want to
just
spend
to
big money on
begin, yeah,
sales and marketing.
that's very true.
And so that was the key to one, pivot the business to be in the telco billing business, and two, have a revenue model that is recurring revenue, be a
Yeah.
vendor.
What it does, David, is tell us listen to our customers. Don't be too locked in as to the way we want to operate as well, because sometimes we can be fixated. No, it's going to cost you a 100K setup fee just to picking a number, and they're just not capable of doing that. To be flexible in business is important. To learn what could come and how customers and consumers might drive your model, depending, and we actually position you in a way to be more
Yeah.
competitive or even ability to pick up more clients. So it's interesting you learn. Some people are very fixated on the way they want to operate.
I was a small business. I was selling to other small businesses who were startups, but you've got to listen to them. You've got to deliver
Yeah, of
what they
course.
want. That's one lesson. Then I got probably the best piece of advice. So the business is growing, and I'm thinking, how am I going to grow this further? And so I have this idea because I was still, the technology person and the operations person and all of that. I have this idea. Why don't I find somebody to be the biz dev person, and that person can come in as a partner and go out there and sell more. So I get connected with this guy, and he's got a sales background, and he comes in, spends 3 months in the business, and he comes up with two conclusions. One, that he didn't want to be in the billing business. He actually wanted to be in the telco business. Okay. And he ended
Good
up going,
business. Yeah.
I ended up partnering with him in a telco business, which we ended up reverse listing on the ASX. It was a whole story. But the
So
other piece of advice,
that's a very story in itself. Reverse
it's a
listings.
whole it's a
So
whole story in
yeah,
itself, and it sort of
yeah, yeah,
became it was
yeah.
the seed that eventually became what's now Focus, I think.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah,
Another story for another time.
yeah.
But the other piece of advice was the best piece of advice. He said to me, do not hire a biz dev manager. Okay. The best biz dev manager in the business is you. Instead, hire an operations manager. And
Okay.
I took his advice. That's what I did. And I was out of my comfort zone because I wanted to cut code and run operations and do all that back office stuff, not be out there talking to prospecting, selling. Nevertheless, people liked it, and I had the ability to sell and acquire business, and that was really a key turning point. So thank you, Evan, for that. But it's a piece of advice I give to other business owners who say, what are you good at? Nobody sells the business like the owner. The owner has a passion for the business,
Yeah, they're
and
in a different spot to communicate about the business, but also there's a huge advantage being the owner and the person selling. You can make decisions on the fly. You can, if a customer asks for something, you can figure out ahead, yes, we can deliver that, or how might we get there quickly. If they're biz dev just coming into the business, they don't understand the product perspective. They might know that we could do X, Y, Z. You've got a wrangle of everything, so there's a huge advantage being in front of clients that way.
it depends what product you're selling. And we were selling a complex product. So those sorts of conversations that you described
Yes.
were exactly what happened. Somebody says, can you do this? And in my head, I'm
Yeah.
architecting the solution.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I say,
the wheels are
yes.
turning.
But
Yeah,
then I'll go back to the tech people and say, oh,
yeah,
can we do this?
yes.
And they say, oh, good.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dev team's always going to push back. That's the
Yeah,
reality.
there's a creative tension between
Yes.
sales and dev because the salespeople want to sell. But that said, as a salesperson, I was selling with a lot of knowledge, a lot more than your typical salesperson would have, and we've
Yeah.
continued that philosophy in the business to say, we're selling something complex. We don't want it sold by a bozo who's just reading a script.
Yeah. It makes it very
So
challenging to
that so
actually
that
convert.
led, on quite a journey. First of all, it was a journey of growth. Second of all, I started two other telco businesses. I partnered in two other businesses. In parallel with all that, joined a couple of non-profit boards. Learned a lot about governance, about strategy, about non-profits. Also learning about what other high net wealth families were doing in terms of succession and intergenerational wealth transition and strategic philanthropy and engaging the rising generation. So this is sort of like the interesting part of my journey as a business owner, where it starts to sort of look more toward the future. And so the billing business kept going, and it had some ups, and I was hiring operations managers, and each successive operations manager was more and more senior until I had a general manager, because I had read two books. One, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The idea of owning a business, not owning a job, was very important to me. And the other one I read was Gerber, E-Myth,
E-Myth, yeah.
about business systems. What am I creating? And for me, it was so important to create something that was of value to somebody else and of value without me, because I grew up seeing my dad micromanaging and never being able to get away from the business. And I'm saying to myself, what is the business actually for?
Good question to ask yourself, because sometimes when you get into business, we don't really ask, a lot of people don't, and I probably have never asked that specific question. What is business for? What did you
What's
figure
the,
out?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the business to
Mm,
keep you busy? Is the
mm,
business to make you money? Is the business
mhm,
a way to create wealth? Is the business something that you want to bring your kids into? People don't ask those questions.
mm,
And businesses go through life, stages of their life cycle. When you're in early stage, you work like a dog. I listened to a
mm,
podcast yesterday from a GP from a large global venture fund, and he says the first 3-4 years of founders, that needs to be the time when they're really going in hard. But then after
mm.
that, he encourages the founders to sort of think beyond. Now, this is in the startup world where people are focused on exits. Okay,
Yeah,
not
that's the
every
majority of
business.
what everyone's looking at in startup world. Exit, exit, especially VC back. That's the intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
VC backed businesses
Mm,
are always hunting for an exit because
mm,
they're created to exit, and that's the funding model.
yeah.
Okay, PE, the majority of PE firms are also exit focused. They're
Mhm.
investing with a time frame and they want to get out at some point. But not everybody does that. Some people will create a business and it gives them what to do. It provides income. It might become a family business at some point.
Mhm.
But people's got to ask themselves these questions. Otherwise, you keep staying on the wheel and never getting off. And at some point, and for me, it was a health crisis that got me thinking, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have 5 businesses and 2 non-profit roles and a growing family, and maybe I'm taking on a bit too much.
Yeah, we can overstretch ourselves. As it depends on where you sit, but if you're in that creative sort of landscape, which sounds like you are, how do we create? You're a developer, a creator on the tools beginning, but then you create businesses and you create the opportunities, and then
Yeah.
you start another side venture, and another one starts up in a partnership, and you got 5 all of a sudden, and then you've really stretched, and it's how do you focus your attention? And if the businesses aren't operationalized and don't have management in them, and you're be seen to trying to manage top level across everything, it becomes very difficult. So, how did you get from the rich dad poor dad e myth, the business, the operator in the business, stepping out of the business and becoming an owner? That is probably, or an investor even. So, what was that step and leap for you to go from operator to owner investor in businesses?
So it actually came in a bit of a crisis that was before the
Yeah.
health issue.
Okay.
And what happened? What we had a few good years, and I
Mm-hmm.
had this general manager,
Yeah.
and we kept on butting heads. We didn't have a clear boundary between us,
Mm-hmm.
and I had 2 things happen at the same time. We had a few good years, and then we had a very bad year in the
Mm-hmm.
billing business because we were
Mm-hmm.
growing too fast. And
Yeah.
also, one of my partnerships was a complete disaster, and that failed. And I'm thinking, what should I do? And I have 2 pieces of advice. Okay, I'm at a
Mm-hmm.
crossroads. What do I do next? And the first piece of advice was from my dad. I had a lot of respect for my dad. He was very successful, and he says to me, "Go in there and sack that general manager and run it yourself properly." Okay,
Yeah, but that would be the runner, the operator in there. Yeah, that would be the
that
baton.
was,
Just got
and
to do
that
everything
was
yourself.
owner
Yeah,
operator. Don't
yeah,
trust anybody. She's not
mm,
doing a good job. Get rid of
yeah.
her and do her job yourself.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I had another piece of advice from a fellow who was at the time already moving into professional director stage of his life. And he said, actually, what you ought to do is step back from the business properly, okay? Set up
Yes.
an advisory board, make the
Okay.
general manager a CEO, have a clear delegation to management, and some
Mm-hmm.
clear boundaries between you and the CEO. So opposite pieces of advice: go in further or go out properly. And it was not something I ever did in the business
Mm-hmm.
because I was running it by the seat of my pants. So
Yeah.
I didn't have a clear delegation, and that general manager who became a CEO but left pretty quickly because that was not working,
Mm-hmm.
replaced by a new CEO who himself had a background as a business owner, and he understood the dynamic of being a CEO of a business for somebody who was a 100% owner,
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me another one of the best pieces of advice. He said to me, "Don't buy a dog and bark yourself." And
Yeah, fair.
I
Very good.
love the way he
Yeah,
said it.
that's
He said,
brilliant. Yeah,
"You're hiring me to do a job. Let
yes,
me do the
do the
job."
job.
Okay?
Yeah,
Because don't give somebody authority if they've not got the autonomy that goes with it. And we developed a fantastic working relationship because I was 100% owner, but he was running the business day to day, and we would play off each other. And somebody would say, somebody would escalate something because they weren't happy with what he said. He said, "Come to David. Oh, David, I've been your customer for all these years. Why can't you do this for me?" And I would say to them, what I would do is I would bounce authority back to the CEO, and I would say, "How can I demand my CEO to reach some profit targets if I'm going to listen to you and give you a discount and then say to him, 'Hang on,
hang
you
on.
haven't
Yeah, you
delivered
don't
a
meet the
profit'?"
target.
He'll say to me,
Yeah,
"Well, hey, yeah, of course I haven't. You've interfered and not let me do my job."
yeah. It is a tough one. How did you find the letting go process?
Oh, but let him
What did it
go.
feel like? What did it feel? Because when you're in it and you're in it for years, how long were you in the business before you got to this point?
Oh, before that, it
Yeah.
was 15 years,
Yeah,
maybe
it's a
10,
long
15 years,
chunk of
something
time.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been in
Yeah,
business since
something, yeah.
17 years. I'd find that very difficult. Well, how did you piecemeal and decouple out of the real operation of the business? What was that
So
experience
So
like?
we set up this advisory board and we had regular monthly board meetings. And I put a little sticker
Yes.
on my door with all of my roles. And billing bureau, I wrote non-exec because I
Okay.
was I was 100%
Yep.
owner. I was,
Yes.
but I called myself notionally non-exec, which was my signal to staff to say, "Do not come to me about stuff. Go to Paul. He's the CEO. It's his job." So first of all, it was an adjustment to staff because
Of
they said,
course.
"Is David
Yeah.
really running this, or is this a serious project for him?" But it left me with a huge hole. I said, "Hang on, I've got these other businesses. I was spending a bit of time on them, but then I'm thinking a lot about what I would do next with my life." Started to deal with this health thing and thinking, you know what, I should do an MBA.
Okay, let's go and do
Okay,
some education. Why not?
education.
Yeah,
That's
got to
right.
fill time. We get a bit bored, don't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's only so
because
so many holidays you can have. Yes.
yeah, I didn't know what the future held for me. I knew that at some point in the future in my family there would be a wealth transition. We didn't talk about that. I didn't know what that would look like, but I knew that at some point I would not need to work.
Okay.
What is that? Looking at other families, hearing about how they're preparing their rising generation for it, that was very informative to hear from them. So I ended up doing this thing called a Masters of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Swinburne, and it was fantastic. It opened my eyes to a different way of looking at things. It improved the quality of my writing and my thinking. And by the end of it, I had developed this mental model, which I eventually published years later, that I called the time purpose map. To sort of, it's a model of how to allocate your time, because time is our most important asset. Okay, time is the great equalizer. For as many days as we have on the world, we've each got the same 24 hours. How we use our time is the most important thing.
Let's talk about that a little bit because it can be helpful at all levels. Starting a business, in a business, operating, scaling, early stage. We can focus on or get stuck in day to day a lot. Let's talk through that time purpose map. What does it mean? What does it
It
look like for
means
someone?
that so it's basically a two by two. Okay, on the time side, active versus passive. On the
Yep.
purpose side, for profit versus non-profit.
Okay.
And that sort of gives rise to four quadrants. So you might think of active for profit is a job. Passive for profit is investment. Active non-profit is being involved in non-profits as a volunteer, a director, a committee member. Passive non-profits, writing checks. And I sort of had this notion that it is healthy to have a balance of each, not be
Okay.
concentrated all in one quadrant. And I do this for myself. And as I said, I published it and have done some presentations on it. So I thought, well, what's my life going to look like? I don't want to be all up in operating business. I didn't want to be all up in investment and just living off dividends, because I don't think that's healthy either. I think we should have some active in our lives. In the non-profit world, I was quite engaged with a number of non-profits and had built up my board skills. And I really enjoyed that way of contributing to a non-profit. You know, in the non-profit world, we speak of, it used to be the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. So in terms of philanthropy, right, I was, my parents were very active in the community, and that's what I grew up around as well. People who are very hands-on, also very generous in terms of supporting financial support for causes. But I was very hands-on. And in the philanthropy world, you've got time, talent, and treasure. People think, oh, write a big check. Okay, but it's more than that. You've got more to contribute. If you're contributing time as a volunteer, if you're contributing talent, whatever your talent happens to be, and I ended up being quite effective as a board member, as a director on things like strategy and good governance, and that became a real passion of mine, because I've seen it done well and I've seen it done badly.
There's many
And
ways to support the community. It's not just about writing a
yes,
check. Yeah, there are many
yeah,
ways to give
yeah.
back. Yeah.
But so many things these days come down to bad governance, and good governance to me is responsible use of power, and the notion that if you're in a governance role of something, whether it's the government,
Yes.
whether it's a family business, whether it's a non-profit, a sporting club, all of these things are much bigger than you.
Yeah, they are.
You just happen
You're
to
only
be the
there for a
person
period of
who's
time.
fortunate enough to
Yes.
have a seat at the table for as long as you have. And I developed all these models of how long it's good to be on a board and board turnover, and I really like that part of it. And I've been involved with non-profits where it's been disastrous, where people are all in it. You've got a room full of egos, which is terrible.
That's not going to really serve
Or
anyone themselves.
yeah,
Yeah, that's terrible. Yes.
yeah, other agendas. I mean, look at sporting organisations, professional football.
Yeah.
You
Lots
know,
of egos over there. That's for
lots of
sure.
egos around the
Yes.
table.
Yeah.
That's right. So, develop some strong ideas about the importance of good governance, and thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I'm on a journey with this business. Eventually, I might sell it. I might not sell it. I don't know. But at least I've gone on that journey, and that business is now a grown-up business and it is worth something to somebody else. I still want to scale it some more before exiting,
Yes.
but I've achieved what I wanted to achieve because I majority owned that business. Some staff came in as owners, but it was only taken up 10% of my time. Tick. Happy with
That
that.
is a win, isn't it?
That's a win.
That's that becoming you're moving to that investor side, not in the
Exactly.
job
From
side, that
owner
active one.
operator,
Yeah, which is
yeah, to
brilliant.
owner investor. And then eventually,
And
possibly
that's
exit.
why we need goals, and to think about that question that you asked at the
Exactly.
start. What's the business for?
What's
Answering
the
that
business
question.
for?
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
that business for?
And,
And I think you
you
set
know,
yourself
my
up pretty well.
kids, yeah, my kids never wanted a job in the business. Even when one of my kids worked in the business, I made sure that he had nothing to do with me. I refused to be his direct, have him reporting directly to me. And that was, gave him a start into what he does now. But it wasn't, I didn't want to turn it into a family business. So I'm thinking, what can I do? What am I going to do with my time that leverages all of me? Okay. And so what I came up with is, I come from a wealthy family. I understand business, technology. I understand governance and strategy. I understand intergenerational wealth transition and family dynamics. I'll put all that together and I will advise other families on their journey.
So we're back to selling time, David. Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book.
Yeah. Yes. And I have a copy of the
Okay.
book. Yes.
You've got a
Yeah.
copy of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
And so launched my career as an advisor. And that is now the bulk of my time.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. So, still own the business. The other 2 businesses, well, the 2 partnerships, as I said, one of them failed. The other one I sold off to the partners. That was a very good outcome. The other 2 telco businesses, got out of them a few years ago. They were just, I didn't have the headspace. I realized that, there's only so much you can do.
It's true.
And I had a habit of spreading myself thin. So
I don't know if that's a similar habit I share, but yeah, you can spread yourself pretty thin pretty quickly. It's easier to
Yeah,
do that.
it's partly the way my brain works. It's partly, shiny objects.
Can be that.
Oh, yeah, here's a new project. I'll start that. Here's a new
Yes.
project. I'll start that. And it takes a lot of discipline to say, well, what's the opportunity cost? If I'm saying yes to everything, what am I saying no to?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, we need to consider that.
So,
What I've found in anything that we've put energy into as a business ourselves, similar to you, we started a product, but in the pharmacy sector. That was a product that a customer needed, wanted, and we commercialized. So it's a very similar journey in that world. But then what I found is the rest of the stuff is anything, a project that add value to the core business is where we should think about spending most of our time. Shiny new objects, the new markets you don't understand, become very difficult and chew a lot of time very quickly. And if you don't give them enough energy, someone else will give them more energy, and you're not going to really win in those markets if you're not focused. So that's what I've learned over the journey. Just get better at what you're doing and keep evolving your iteration of business, because that's going to drive you further faster than this new business opportunity in a completely new market, and then you're going to start from scratch again. So that's what I've learned. It took me a while, but yeah, I've learned that. It took heavy learning, couple of failures and bits and pieces, but
yeah,
yeah, you get back
but
to what works.
it's an important lesson.
It is.
A friend of, or a guy used to be a customer. I think he was a customer twice actually in the billing business, and become a friend. And he said to me, "Your most important thing is who you say no to. Customer you said no to." Okay, we sacked a customer once, and that was because I couldn't accept the way he was treating my staff, and we took a big financial hit on that. It cost us, but I couldn't have that situation continue.
Yeah, there's
But
points in time where yeah, if there's that sort of stuff getting away, it's not good. It's very rare in business, but it can happen. Yeah,
yeah, it can happen. It's rare, but the customers you say no to, and it's like, you know, you don't just chase revenue for revenue's sake. You've got to know what are we good at, and let's stick to our guns, as you said. What are our strengths, and double down on our strengths rather than try to be everything to everybody.
agree.
Yeah, we could do this, but that doesn't mean we should do this.
You can do anything. That's the reality. We're a
You
world
can
full
do
of anything.
anything.
You can learn an industry, you can dig in, but yeah, should you be doing it? That's a real point.
Yeah, yeah, that's very very important. So and similarly, a lot of my work with families, the foundational part of it is around communication, obviously, but then shared values and purpose. And understanding your values, a lot of people will do this with businesses. We had somebody who did it with us a few times. Whenever we do our strategy, we'd understand what are our values as a business.
Yes.
And, sometimes I look at businesses and you see their value statements on the wall or on the website and they're bullshit. They're
A lot of
motherhood
them are.
statements.
95% of them are. That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. They could be anybody's values. So the questions you've got to ask yourself is what makes them uniquely yours, first of all. But the one question that I love that this facilitator came to us with, he said, ask yourself, what would you not do because of your values? And I love the framing of a question, and I use that a lot now. Whether it's, an investment policy statement, what would you not invest in? Or, if a business opportunity came to you and you said, no, I'll give you a great example, okay? So I was working with this family in Asia,
Yes.
and we're running some workshops, and they're very big into philanthropy, and they're going to have a large, foundation. And one of the challenges that I identified was the difference in philanthropic values, in giving values between the parents and the children. And we had a really good discussion about it because the father had a particular approach. But when he spoke more about it, it seemed a lot more inclusive and broader than we first thought. And then the kids certainly didn't understand it as that. But then it sort of went a bit far. And we said, well, if it's that, what isn't it? So by asking that not question, what would you not fund? That enabled us to set some boundaries around what we would. But the not, yes, this idea of setting boundaries to say, you only know what your boundary is by when you cross the boundary. What's your red line? What would you not do because of your values? And it's an important question to ask, and it was really informative for this family, and it was surprising to see the answers.
Everyone's got a
That's
perspective on
something
that,
that,
right? So yeah, everyone will have different answers or different feedback on
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And the kids say, oh, well, if that's the case,
Yeah.
well, in that case, yeah, sure, we're in. Not, oh, we're only,
Yeah.
and this is a big issue
Yes.
with philanthropy in families. You might get, the incumbent generation will set up a foundation with a particular purpose, and then they will gift it to their children to manage on their behalf.
Okay.
And the children say, this doesn't resonate with us.
Doesn't relate. Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah. You need to have passion behind anything that you're involved in, really.
That's
And
right.
if it is not resonating, then they might want to do something else completely, which is a different cause.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
But if the way the trust is written is that it's very narrow and first of all, if it's narrow, and second of all, if the people that you expect in the future to be running it are not at the table to work out what the purpose is, then they're not going to have buy-in.
Yeah, very true. Anyone that contributes to purpose or anything in a business is going to have buy-in. Every customers, it goes back to customers contributed product contributes to
Yeah.
buy-in. Anyone that if you're really engaged, that's when buy-in really comes through.
So, so this is now what I do. I write, I speak, I work with families, I help them navigate intergenerational transition and all the things that come with it, whether it's values, mission, purpose, governance, developing a family charter, which is quite a complex exercise, but the most important thing is getting the family together to be communicating and working on it so that it reflects the wishes of the whole family. And and to make sure that when you're around that table, and this is where being an outsider from the family is so important, because when you've got a family, a multi-generational family sitting at the table, it might look like they're sitting at the board table, but they're sitting at the kitchen table. Okay, because the dynamics, the family dynamics are there in the room.
Yeah, they would carry
Sometimes
through
it's
to that, wouldn't
palpable.
they? Yes, I imagine
Yeah.
they would. Yeah.
And what that means is the by having an external there, the external is able to just measure the room, raise the voices so people can be heard, and and tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. That's first of all. Second of all, people will behave differently when there's an outsider in the room. They won't be quite as
Yeah, not as open or pushback or there's a bit
exactly.
more holding the line a little bit, which is good. I think that's a good dynamic too,
Oh, it's
because
healthy.
it will
Yeah.
assist if there's any sort of conflict of thoughts. At least they get spoken about a bit more amicably. So I would put it that way,
No,
because there could
correct.
be
Yeah.
some weird
Yeah.
dynamics in certain families. I'd imagine that you'd stumble
Yeah.
into. Yeah.
And you can communicate with a bit of a code of conduct. These are the
Yes.
rules by which we communicate.
Mm.
These are the values by which we operate. And
Mm-hmm.
if somebody breaches those values, we understand this is the consequence of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if somebody says something,
Mm.
we teach them how to communicate, how to respond, how to communicate with curiosity, how to call things out
Mm.
in a non-confrontational way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the basis of communication, shared values and purpose, and then governance. And those are the ingredients of a healthy, functioning, multi-generational family.
It's a fascinating world that you're working in. I've never met anyone that's assisting in that space. What has it taught you? What's some big learnings you've learned by working with different families in this dynamic?
People say you've seen one family, you've seen one family,
Mm.
but you see a lot of repeating patterns.
Okay.
And so, I've learned that human nature is human nature.
Mm.
and and
Yeah.
and all of these things I've learned that
Yeah.
money is a proxy. Okay, people use money as a convenient way to have arguments
Mm.
and to exert power
Mm-hmm.
when because it's easier than having a tough conversation.
Fascinating. Mm.
I've learned that the most important thing is relationships, time spent. So true wealth comes from not things but experiences.
Does.
There's a wealth in time and how we spend it. I was speaking to a business family just the other day, and they are potentially approaching an exit, and sort of I'm guiding them through that and preparing for that and preparing for what happens next. And and I keep hearing the same thing. Time with family, that's what's important. But people forget that.
Yeah, you do
And
get lost in it when you're in the day to day and you're more in the active role. Time, years go by very quickly. Children grow up around you, and it's just you think, where has time gone? So you can get all consumed by business, and you said your dad was like that. But we've all have challenges in business and been a little bit like that over time, or still stuck in it. So as you're right in the thick of it, years go by, and you think, where have they gone? What has happened? I recall we started the business in 2008, a long time ago now. I was 22, 23. It's where's all that time gone? I've got 3 kids now, married, beautiful wife, family. But yeah, it just feels like a different person started the business, and it was a different person. It was someone that was a bit more naive than walked into a business world, had no real context of what they're doing. Similar, developing software was what our passion. What can we build? And then learned that yeah, it's not just about building software. There's an operation behind it. There's a process behind this. There's the things we need to really deliver from a business perspective that we learn. But yeah, if I think back, it's been 17 years. I don't know where that time's gone. So it goes quickly. We need to be a part, build relationships, and continue to spend time where it's most valued, and that's with family. And if you're not doing that, that's why we're here doing business and trying to grow something. So yeah, it's a fascinating one how time disappears very, very quickly.
yeah, look, we're not the people we were,
No.
and we can look back and say, where did the years go?
Yes.
But I don't think that's productive.
No, it's
Rather,
not. But when you're in the
yeah,
moment reflecting, it's like, well, it's gone quick. Yeah, it has. It's not productive.
yeah.
And the decisions we've made in the past taught us something or gave us an opportunity to learn and grow and evolve. And yeah, there is a huge evolution as a business owner as to what you can learn, which I think you don't get in being in a job as well. I could be wrong, but I just don't feel like you get that push and tension and growth patterns and massive challenges thrown at you that you might get in a business world.
Yeah. So it's more about what we can learn from it
Yes,
rather than,
yes.
what we should have done.
Yeah,
That's not
there's no
productive.
point looking backwards. You can only look forwards because you're here now. What can you impact in the future? There's nothing. You can't change anything in the past. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot we can talk of. We've been going for a little while. I might cut us there and say thank you for coming on the DevReady podcast. There's a lot of key takeaways. One of the key questions I would get people to reflect on was, what's the business for? If you're going into business in business, I think that's a nice one just to sit down and reflect. If you have business partners, which I do, it's just getting clearer on that. And it took us a while to even think about those sort of areas and what are we actually here for, because you can get stuck on that hamster wheel quite easily in the world of business.
Hmm.
So what is the goal? What's the end state? What are you targeting? Just be really clear on that. And I think that's quite a good takeaway for people to think through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was, Alice in Wonderland.
yeah,
Which way should we go?
yeah,
Well, it depends where you want to be.
yeah,
If you don't know where you want to be, where
yeah,
you want to go,
yeah.
doesn't matter which path you take.
Yes, you end
So the
up
first step
somewhere.
is always, what do you want? What are your goals?
Yeah,
And that's in life, that's in business, that's personal, all of those things. And I work with people very holistically, because you can't say, well, the business me wants this and the personal me
yes,
wants this. And I say, well, hang on, you've got conflicting goals.
yeah, brilliant.
If you've
Yeah,
got
it's a problem.
conflicting
Yeah,
goals, then you're going to have a lot of trouble.
yeah.
Who's going to win
No,
when
you
these
can't win when
are
there's
in direct
conflicting
conflict?
goals. So you're never going to really win, are you? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, David, if anyone wants to reach out and learn more about you, how can they find you?
I'll just Google me,
Yeah.
davidwerdiger.com, or look me up on LinkedIn. I write a lot on LinkedIn,
Yes.
and yeah, I'm easy to find.
Perfect. Now, thank you, David. Thanks for joining us on the DevReady podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed our chat.